Welcome everyone to our webinar today, discussing just the basics, Posting Flows Unraveled. We are glad you're here and pleased to introduce Sandy Wickman as our presenter. Sandy is a Microsoft GP certified expert with over 25 years of experience implementing Microsoft Dynamics GP and Business Central products. She has a record of client successes in diverse verticals, including manufacturing, reverse manufacturing, banking, technology, gaming, professional services, retail sales, and nonprofits. She was one of the first implementation experts to earn the Dynamics Credentialed Professional certification. Sandy's experience also includes Dynamics BC with experience level in several of the core competencies on this platform. She enjoys helping GP clients bridge the gap between what they are used to with Dynamics GP and the functionality that they will use with Business Central. She also excels in all aspects of implementations, from business process reviews, configuration, customization, reporting, and more. And this foundation, combined with over 40 years of experience in the business world, present a perfect position from which to consult with business owners and professionals, finding solutions and business process refinements that suit their needs well. Sandy's experience with change management training also provides a unique complement to her business systems acumen. Please join me today in welcoming Sandy as our speaker for the webinar entitled Dynamics BC, Just the Basics, Posting Flows Unraveled.
Well, this is Dawn, and before we turn it over to Sandy, I just wanted to welcome everyone and just a few little housekeeping items. If you have any questions, please look for the Q&A function in the Zoom platform and enter your questions. We'd be more than happy to answer the questions that come into the Q&A periodically, and we urge you not to be shy, but to share with us. And then following the webinar, you'll receive from me an email that contains a copy of the slides, a link to the recording, and a link to a survey, and allow up to 48 hours to receive that. And without further ado, I'm going to turn the microphone over to Sandy.
Thank you, Dawn and Margaret. Appreciate everyone being here today, and thanks for your patience with our challenge with this webinar from last week. Today's learning objectives. So we're going to look at how do Dynamics BC posting groups compare to Dynamics GP classes? And why is the setup of BC posting groups important to how the transactions and journals post? Thirdly, within a sales invoice in BC, where does it query the matrix for posting? And lastly, why did that sales invoice pick up the offset account, and from what setups did that come from? So we're going to dive right into our very first poll question because it sort of sets some of the tone for how we approach this particular webinar.
There we go. What would you consider your most important factor in your decision to change ERP? And this is a multiple choice. You can choose more than one. And as I look at this, Sandy, there are really so many factors to consider when an organization is looking to change ERP. It's not something that they enter into lightly. And with all the different needs and challenges, when you're working with a client, what are the business needs that affect a company's move or their need to move?
That's a great question, Dawn. So, a couple of the things are listed here, right? Some of that deep accounting with detailed dimensional reporting. Some of our customers are really looking for more focus on the accounting functionality, and others really have many other integrating products and things that they need to be able to bring data from, push data to, web stores, all kinds of things. And that really kind of sets a different expectation for the implementation. And so some important factors to consider, right? And then thirdly, how easy is it to implement? And certainly cloud-based, that seems to be the focus for all of us as we move forward with our ERP selection. Thanks for asking.
Yeah, and I think you nailed it because 100% of our audience selected ease of implementation, cloud-based, and half of the audience selected deep accounting with detailed dimensional reporting. And then the rest, the 25%, broad integration to other applications.
That's great to know. So, kind of keep that in mind as you're looking at your current ERP solution. Do you have many other integrating products and how that will impact your overall selection? Okay, let's go on. So we are going to start with looking at our GP posting setups and the hierarchy within that posting setup. So it's important to note that there is a hierarchy. In some cases, if you've come into GP after it had already been implemented, you may not be aware of the fact that there are multiple levels of where these GP posting accounts can come from. So we're going to define these posting setups as things that simplify and reduce errors and inconsistencies when you're posting transactions. And once the accounts are set up, they'll default on transaction entry windows. So let's take a look at that. So we're going to jump over here to our GP. And we're starting in our administration area page. And I'm going to be in the setup pane. And in the posting section is this posting accounts selection. So for every type or module within our GP application, we have the ability to be able to set the highest level of default accounts. That means that if I don't find an account at a lower level than this top level, these are the defaults that are going to end up on a transaction. So for example, if I pick the sales module, I'll be able to see here that by default, if nothing else is defined, then this will become the sales account that will default on transactions. Okay, so highest level of the posting account setup. The next level down in the sales module, and this is true of the purchasing and inventory modules as well, is the consideration for classes. So in this case, we're going to be looking at customer classes. And when I click on the looking glass, I'm going to choose this one here that I called Singapore. So I would know that all of my Singapore classes where this Singapore customers where this class has been applied should have a finance charge percent, a credit limit, and even in the accounts button, all of my Singapore sales are now going to go to a different sales account than the one I had identified at the top level. All of my Singapore class customers should have a different sales account. So class IDs give us a way to be able to roll down those defaults to new customers and give that level of information to any new customer that I create. So then that final level, and this is in fairly rare cases where I might have a customer who has something that's different and unique than any other class or top level. So I created a new customer here called Singapore Sales, and I applied the class for Singapore. And if I go to the accounts button, I can see that the sales account has defaulted for the Singapore sales, and into the options button where I would see that I have a default for my credit limit and my finance charge. So by applying these either through class or individual customers, all of those will default onto our transactions as we do transactions within GP. Okay, let's go back to our slide and see where we're going next then. So within the BC posting setups, there are several different posting groups. And BC uses these posting groups to configure and define how their defaults work. So there's two types of posting groups. They're called general and specific. The general business posting group and general product posting group. You'll notice on this image that we also refer to VAT or VAT. So BC is truly an international application, and VAT tax is an international concept for tax authorization. So we're not going to focus too much on VAT today. We're going to look at general business posting and general product posting groups. So the posting groups are used to tie customers, vendors, and items to the GL accounts. So the business posting groups are focused on the who you sell to and who you buy from. The general product posting groups are based on the what you sell and what you buy. Okay, so within that, those general business posting groups focused on the who, that's going to be things like our AR accounts and discount accounts for our customers, as well as the AP account for our vendors. The general product posting groups focused on the what is what defines items with locations for the inventory account and the COGS accounts. So here's one of the definers that's different between the BC posting groups and GP classes, because in the BC posting groups, it's items with their locations. So if you were going to need to have different GL accounts for inventory based on whether it's based in Nevada or Arizona or California, that can define your accounts based on items with locations. There was a way to get some of that functionality in GP in the inventory setup, but this gives you more flexibility for those items with locations. Then the general posting setup, and the word setup is what's different here. The general posting setups is what groups those two things together. Okay, so the name of this webinar, Unraveled. The first time I saw this image, I thought, I am never going to understand this. This is craziness. How could you understand this? So this webinar is simplifying it. The image is still valid, and once you understand the concepts and how things pull together, you'll see how this image works. But it certainly is a complex image to get your mind around. Okay, so I'm going to go take a look now at in the BC application and talk through some of the posting groups. So back up a little bit here. Okay, so here I am on my BC homepage, and I'm going to click on the looking glass and enter posting groups. So I actually have 13 different selections in the posting group setup. So some of the ones we won't go terribly deeply into today are fixed assets and banking, but notice that they do have their own sets. We're going to start with that general business posting groups. Remember, this is where we get the who from our list. So in this case, I might want to focus my who on regions where I sell into, or segments of my buying population, industries, or even how I want to categorize my sales and purchases for my reporting and my general ledger, right? So think about it for both sales and purchasing. This is about the who. So in this case, I've got some domestic customers that we're going to look a little deeper at, but I also have some others, right? I could do this based on my export customers or the size of my customers. Back to my looking glass and my posting groups again. And now I'm going to look at my general product posting groups. The product posting groups are looking at the what. So I can base this on product lines, things that I use for manufacturing, retail, services. So again, very similar kinds of concepts to the ways that we look at our classes in GP. So I'm going to choose raw material, and I'm going to go dig in a little bit and look at what actually gets set into that posting group. So this general product posting group for raw materials on domestic is where I'm defining my sales account, maybe my credit accounts, my COGS accounts, right? There's my COGS account, inventory adjustments, and other related accounts, and what's defining that product posting group. On my, we'll jump back to the business posting group. And I'll show you which accounts are on that one. So in the domestic, for this case, if I go look at those accounts, I would see then that the business posting group is where I'm defining sales. Right? So I get to define a number of different related types of accounts on that business posting group. And then the last part of that is that posting setup. Where I have my general posting setup, and it's bringing together the two concepts of business posting group together with the product posting group. So I've got domestic business posting, so that'd be my customers and vendors, and I have my product, which is services or retail or raw materials. In this case, I'm defining my sales accounts, COGS accounts, here at this level, at my posting setup, where I'm bringing those two concepts together. Okay, so I wanted to include in your slide deck for today's presentation some of those best practices. So customers and vendors into regions and segments and industries, right? Or even how you want to track and report on business postings. The product posting groups on items into what you sell or buy, such as things you use in manufacturing, things on product lines, services, etc. So this table describes the posting groups that are specific to types of data. So these are the specific posting groups. The ones we looked at before were not specific. These are specific to customers, vendors, inventory. I mentioned bank and fixed assets. So we're mostly going to focus on customers today. So defining the accounts to use when you're posting to accounts receivable and accounts payable for vendors. So in this specific posting group, I'm going to get my AR and discounts. And for vendors, I'll get my AP, and then those items with locations. So let's go back and take a look at one of those. So we're going to look at the customer posting groups. So this is specific. So in this case, I see my domestic customers and should be able to see the accounts receivable account to those. And we're going to look at that a little more closely when we get to the transactions, where we'll see the accounts receivable account come up on my customer specific. So specific posting groups are these types. Okay, Dawn, I think we're ready for poll question number 2.
All right. What questions would be most important to get answers to at this point in your cloud journey? Sandy, this one really resonates with me because in any kind of researching, it can be really overwhelming. And so what are, again, you're the one that works with the customers one-on-one, not me. What are you seeing most people looking for?
Looking for, so depending on the business, certainly, right? That deep functionality. An additional question is, where do you get the most important information based on what you're looking for? So starting off with something that is defining your requirements, right? So if you can sit down with your internal group of people and say, these are the things that we absolutely must have in our ERP system, and then go looking for solution sets, it has helped customers dramatically. And we at LBMC can help with your defining of those requirements if you'd like. We have experience with defining requirements based on a number of different industries. But then once you have that list of requirements, unbiased product functionality comparisons is challenging right now because there are so many different ERPs that are marketing to you that you have to be really careful to know who to trust. Look at lots of things. Just be careful to know who to trust and how to evaluate one-to-one. And then, like it says, evaluate the features. Certainly, we hope that the relationships that we have with our GP customers and our other ERP customers will give you the basis for coming to us with any of your questions. Even telling us about the specifics that you are evaluating so that we can help you understand whether that's a fair evaluation. And I'll kind of give you an example, right? So we've had customers come back and say, but this ERP says they can do 1, 2, 3. Well, that's true only if you do XYZ. And sometimes the XYZ is out of scope for your project. So understanding the things that you're evaluating, what your requirements are, and then bringing those to people that you can trust to be able to help you know what to do with that information is certainly what we hope you will trust us with at LBMC.
And 100% of our respondents selected all of the above. So I think you gave them some very good choices.
Great, great. Okay. So we're going to go take a look at a sales invoice within BC, and then we'll look at where those posting accounts are coming from. So I'm going to go back to my BC environment, and I'm going to start by looking up a customer. So I have been using this looking glass to look for things, but I want to point out that based on your role center, and individuals are defined in role centers kinds of security in BC, you can put things on the top of your BC homepage that you access routinely. And then if there's other things that you want to bookmark so that they show up at the top of your page here, you can certainly do that as well. So I don't always have to know the exact words to type into the looking glass. So I'm going to pick customers. And then I'm going to choose my Alpine Ski House customer. And we're going to do first we're going to look at where those specific posting groups are set on my customer record. So I'm going to scroll down here a little bit. And this customer, Alpine Ski House, has their general business posting group called domestic. So we looked at that one. That's that domestic posting group is where we looked for our sales account and our cost of goods account. So we've got our business posting group that we select for this customer. And then we have our specific posting group, which is the customer posting group. In this case, I am defining my accounts receivable in the specific posting group called domestic for this customer. And then I also have some others that I can choose in there as well. But we're going to focus that on the receivables account for this customer. So that's where we set them on the customer card. Then I'm going to go do a new transaction for this customer. So I'm going to go to a new document, and we're just going to create a sales invoice. So this is very similar to what you might do in sales order processing, where you're creating a new invoice for your customer. I'm coming down here to this line, and I'm going to add the item number that I'm going to sell them. So we're just going to sell them some paper coffee cups, a quantity of 2. They're really expensive coffee cups. So That's all that's required for me to be able to see the line item for something I'm going to sell. Now, just like with my customers, my item numbers have a specific posting group as well. So I'm going to drill down into the specific item. So similar to drilling back into the blue underlined item, I'm coming over here and drilling into the item F101. And when I see that page, I should see the specific posting group for the inventory item called resale. So in my inventory items, I see I've got a bunch of different posting groups that are defined for my inventory. And when I look at the specifics for that resale type item, I not only see the posting code, but I also see the location. So I could potentially have for resale items in the East, I could have a different item account, inventory account for each one of these groups. So same posting group, different location. And this is also where I might have some of my other types of accounts, including material variances and manufacturing, if I'm a manufacturing type customer. Okay, so now we kind of have an idea where the inventory account is going to come from my inventory posting group. And I have an idea where my accounts receivable is coming from my customer. So one of the nice things in BC is I have the ability now to go preview my posting. So this is much like running an edit list on a transaction that you've saved in a batch in GP. So I'm going to preview the posting, and it will just come to the screen and give me an ability to see the transactions that are going to be impacted in the general ledger, and then we can look at where they come from. So the inventory account is coming from the item posting group. So there's that 14,130 we just looked at. The sales and COGS accounts are coming from the posting setup. So we get the who from the general business posting and the what from the product posting that were grouped together in the posting setup. And then the last account, our accounts receivable account, came from the customer posting group, very similar to the class accounts in GP. Okay, so my posting preview, a nice way to see that things are going to hit the right accounts and where they came from before we continue. Okay, so a little bit of recap. Within GP, customers and vendors, class ID, rare cases, you're going to do them specific to a customer or vendor. And then top level is that posting setup. And then within BC, within the customer invoice, we got to see the specific accounts pulling into an actual sales invoice in that transaction. So I wanted to just check in. Dawn, do we have any questions?
No, we do not have any questions.
Everybody just wants to go back to that image with all those lines on it.
You've got to be correct. Yep.
Okay, so checking in, how'd we do? We talked about the BC posting groups to the GP classes. Why is the setup of BC posting groups important to how transactions and journal post? So things will default as long as you give them the default locations from the groups. Within a sales invoice in BC, where does it query from? And why that sales invoice got the specific accounts that it did. So I want to make mention here that there also is the function called templates within BC that would allow you to create a template for customers and vendors where you can roll out those details similar to when you roll out classes to new customers. That's really very helpful as well. So you can take that concept and roll them out to customers via a template versus a class. One other note, I think this has become quite a popular topic of conversation. what kinds of things are available when migrating from GP to BC. And in the GP company migration configuration, you can take those classes that you have and migrate them into the templates in BC. You also can migrate just your master records. So if you're considering a migration to BC in the near future, using your current ERP application to discontinue customers you no longer sell to, discontinue items that you no longer sell, inactivate vendors you no longer purchase from, all of that cleanup can help you with migration. We also always have the option of using Excel templates to bring that data in if you don't want to do it directly from your current ERP system. But those posting details can translate from the classes into posting groups that are available in the BC application if you choose to use the migration option. And it can also map the global dimensions into the GP segments. So concept within BC of dimensions replaces the segment values within your GP chart of accounts. So a few more things to think about. And poll question number 3.
So we're asking this poll question because as we plan content for the future, we really want to make sure that we're bringing you relevant, valuable insights. We've got a very talented bench. Sandy and Margaret are represented here, but there are many other GP consultants who will be presenting in the future. But we want to make sure that what we tell you that we're going to present meets the needs and was worth your time.
That's absolutely true. So there's a number of other types of comparisons that we can draw between GP and BC, and hope to do several in the future based on how this meets your requirements and your needs. Is this type of format informative? Is there something more or different that we can do to make sure that you get some introductions that will help you form some initial ideas about what transition might look like for you? Um, I do have another session planned for next month that's got some more transaction level information. This was more setup kind of function, and I'm really anxious to hear how you feel about this kind of format and these kinds of topics.
Well, 100% of the respondents said yes. And
Oh,
if you
great.
do have ideas for topics that you would like to see, please use the chat or the Q&A, and we'll certainly take note of that.
Okay, well, that was a bit shorter than I anticipated, but I wanted to turn it back over to Dawn in terms of upcoming webinars and some announcements. Thank you all so much for attending today, and I appreciate the opportunity to present to you. Always appreciate your feedback if there's something I can do personally better or more of in terms of my presentations and the content that we're delivering to you. So, Dawn?
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Sandy. As she mentioned, coming up in March at the March GP office hours, she is going to take another look at BC versus GP. And that is, I love the title of this, Calm the Anxious Accountant in You. So there's the registration link there. And then in April office hours, one of our strategic account managers, Lisa Cummings, will be talking about GP, Don't Let the Sun Go Down on GP. And we're riffing off of a very famous Elton John song there. And that's sure to be, Lisa's worked with many, many clients who have migrated from GP to Business Central or other cloud solutions, cloud ERP solutions. So she brings a little bit different perspective given the variety of ERPs that she's worked with. So again, thank you, Sandy. Thank you, Margaret. And most importantly, thank you to all who joined us today. We are really glad to have this opportunity to spend some time with you. We'll see you next month.